The opposition leader David Crisfulli has this week visited the district around Longreach, where farmers say they're about 2 years into a seasonal grasshopper plague that's decimated fodder and forced farmers to continually destock their sheep and cattle. David Crisfulli joins me now. David, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Harry.
So you've spent a couple of days around Longreach, and I know that you're now up in far north Queensland, but the farmers you spoke to out west have spoken about the impact of having these grasshoppers. How bad is it out there, and what did you see while you were in the area?
It's soul destroying, and in many cases you've got people who have been through a decade of misery with drought. They finally get a decent shower in October, November, a bit of grass coming through, including some Mitchell grass, bit of hope, bit of opportunity, and then within a 1 month window, these grasshoppers have absolutely levelled things. Now, that's heartbreaking. You can see an opportunity to claw something back from a big chunk of misery over a long period, and it slips through your fingertips. And people are making decisions right now whether to destock. Do we go off and try and get some off-farm income? Do we hold on? That's soul-destroying decisions for anyone to have to make.
It certainly can't be understated the impact this has. I mean, when you don't have grass, when you don't have feed, you don't have cattle, you don't have money, and you can't survive. So, what do you think can be done from a government perspective? Obviously, you've heard what they had to say about it, and what do you think can be done on George Street that might help out?
I think it's twofold, and I'll give you my short and long-term version of what should happen. Firstly, I will say though that the state could have acted a lot sooner. They were being warned about this and they sat on their hands. And I'm going to call that for what it is. There was inactivity, and we have to be prepared to advocate for things without fear or favour. That said, I'm the sort of person that if I point out something wrong, I then give a solution. So here's my thoughts. I think it's no different to a fire ripping through a community where people have got something and then it's taken away. Drought, similar impact, only over a longer period of time. So I'd like to see some targeted short-term assistance to tide people over. Then in the long term, I want the state to get out of Brisbane, go onto the ground and work out what do we do heading into the next season. So what we don't want is for some summer rain this year to come and then the same problems for the third year in a row. Now, with grasshoppers, there's a vastly different situation to locusts, where locusts will eat and then move on. These things stay. They lay eggs. They're in the community. So I want to know that there's an opportunity. Can we go early and make some targeted spraying? Is there an opportunity to get more chemicals available that are safe and therefore make it more affordable? I want all those things to be part of a discussion point. And right now, I just don't think there is an understanding from Brisbane about how serious the problem is. Lachlan Miller, who's the local MP, he raised a question on the floor of Parliament last week, and the minister was absolutely clueless about it. So we've raised the issue, we've pointed out the problem, we've given our solution. Over to you, government. Please come forward and help these guys.
The government said that they are doing something. They've got steps in place. They've got what's called a working group to address this exact issue. It's surveying farmers on the impact of grasshoppers and says it will come up with a strategy from there. You're suggesting this isn't enough, or?
Well, while the government is thinking about a meeting, the grasshoppers are doing a whole lot of eating. That's the contrast of it. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that there shouldn't be working groups looking to the future. Of course there should. But this has been going on for over a month, and now they're only just talking about starting to mobilise. Now, I'm not talking about the departmental folk here. They know the problem. They're out there, they're living it. But I'm talking about the minister who pulls the trigger, the minister who says, here's some short-term subsidy, the minister who says, this is what we're going to do to find a long-term solution. These are the people I'm talking to. This is the action and this is the deadline. That hasn't occurred. So if it takes my visit to get that on the radar, I don't care who comes up with the win. I just want to see the win. So that was the purpose of heading out there, and I hope some good comes from it.
More broadly from your trip out west, David, what are you hearing from the people out there that are the issues? What are you hearing that needs to be addressed from a government perspective? What are people?
Look, obviously finding labour is a big challenge for anyone on the land, and whether that be someone in fruit and veggie or whether that be someone right across the spectrum of agriculture, it's tough to get on-farm labour, and that presents some real opportunities. On a tourism front, things are solid, because what we've learnt in a post-COVID era is that people love the clean and green and authentic experience, and the West has got it in bucket loads. Again, though, they're struggling to find someone to pull beers and clean rooms. That is a challenge. So, look, there are issues that need to be addressed. Western Queensland has had blow after blow after blow, and what I want them to know is that we as a state opposition are going to advocate for them. We're going to try and get them some wins in the next few years, and we're also going to get our house in order to make sure that we are a credible alternative in the future to provide the sort of generational, good, long-term government that they need. And you know, if you boil everything down, I'll tell you what regional Queensland want more than anything. They just want certainty. They want to know that government's not constantly changing the rules. They want to know that government aren't playing them off a break to trade off votes in the inner city. That's all they want. Country people don't ask for the world. They just don't want to be at the whim of decision makers who just don't understand them. And that's why the only way to connect is to get out there, and I'll be doing a hell of a lot more trips to the West, I can assure you.
I'm sure they appreciate seeing politicians out there, David. I've just got one more question. A lot of the Country Callers audience will be aware of media reports over the past week or so that certainly dug up a lot of dirt on internal conflict within the Queensland LNP, an apparent disconnect and turmoil between MPs and power brokers in the party. In that environment, what have your first few months been like as LNP leader, getting your feet under the desk and trying to address this apparent need to unify the party?
The biggest challenge that faces my side of politics, but I'm up to it, and I intend to lead the change that needs to happen. First and foremost, I've got to get us fit for office, and then we can get Queensland back to where it needs to be. I'm not going to walk away from it. Quite on the contrary, I'm rolling everything. I'm putting everything on it. If I can't lead that reform, we're not worthy to win government. So I'm not going to back away 1 inch. We need to change the culture. We need to make sure that we can prepare ourselves to win elections. And then once we do that, we stop talking about ourselves. We start talking about Queenslanders. We start talking about a future for agriculture where there's water security, where the state government starts building dams again for the first time in a generation, where the mining industry knows there's a reliable future, where the tourism industry knows it can use its natural attractions, not have national parks locked up for feral pigs and weeds to enjoy, where we go back to making things in Queensland, a manufacturing industry we can be proud of. That's the sort of Queensland that I want to lead. But first of all, I've got to get my mob in order, and I am up to the task, and I will be going at 100 miles an hour to do it.
Okay, we might leave it on that positive note, David. I'm just going to add to the people listening to this that the statement on grasshoppers in Western Queensland from the state government is in full on the Country Caller website. So go to countrycaller.com.au. David Crisfulli, thanks very much for your time. I'll leave you to your visit up in the tropical north.
Off to see some bananas, Harry. Thanks very much for having us.
I hope there's a few trees still standing up there. All the best to the people.
Cheers, mate.